Well, hello there. I'm meteorologist Chris Mulchay, and I have two friends. You have the power of three meteorologists. We have Tim Buckley. We have Christian Morgan with WFMY. How are you two doing today?
Good, Chris. How are you?
Doing pretty good, doing pretty good. Well, of course, we're talking about snow. So this is not a major event, as all of us were bringing up, but still we're seeing snow regardless. And Tim, I'll give you the floor here. I think the big thing is usually when we're talking about snow, we're talking about our neck of the woods, the mountains. But what are you expecting in your area exactly?
Yeah, so we're looking at, Chris, kind of a changeover. So right now, anyone who's watching from here in the Triad, it's just raining. And that is, going to continue for a little while. It's just raining. We're here in Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point area. That rain is actually coming down really hard. It's going to last for probably another 2, maybe even 3 hours. But once we get past around midnight or so, that's when we'll start to see that changeover into a wet snow. And there's a couple things that need to happen for that. We need to see heavy precipitation. We also want to see that wind shift around. So right now it's coming in out of the east. Later on, it'll come in out of the north, and that'll help to cool the column of air. So actually, Chris, you're sharing a cool graphic here right now. That's showing that a lot of the air right now above us is already below freezing, but it's been too warm at the ground, so it's falling as rain. But later on, when that rain gets heavier, it actually cools that air near the surface, and those flakes, they can make it to the ground. Even if it's 38 degrees, as long as that area is narrow, well, that flake can survive and hit your car and hit your grass, and eventually it might stick. And we think by the morning, we could end up with 1 to 2 inches, a couple areas here in Greensboro.
And by the way, anyone watching in Charlotte, do not expect really anything. You might see some snowflakes mixing in, but again, this is not really a big event, but I'm going to bring you through what's exactly happening here on the radar, so we'll bring that full. I have what's called the enhanced snowfall. So I changed the coloring here, and that is showing some blues. So check out what's happened since about 6, 7 o'clock. I'll even slow it down for you. We had a whole lot of nothing, because just as Tim was saying, we didn't really cool down that column of air, but it's really all about elevation in this type of scenario. There's two things happening. There's a winter storm warning for elevations above 3,500 feet, and then below that, they're only looking about 1 to 3 inches. But honestly, it's really the ground temperature that's going to be the big inhibitor about how much we're going to see. But as you can see slowly, what we've really seen is a flourishing of that wet snow. So likely a lot of this is falling as some of that white rain. But what's going to happen as we continue over the next several hours, this is going to expand. Now, the models are starting to separate themselves. Some showing that, of course, more snow a little bit closer to Raleigh, but check out what happens. Greensboro, where we're talking about my two friends here, you're seeing it start to expand. Notice that pink line, that's that rain-snow line. That's going to be that mix that's going to be happening. But for us in the Charlotte area, if I were to pick one county that I think that has a chance for at least some snow accumulating on elevated surfaces, say your deck might be a little bit slippery, not really a lot's going to be accumulating in your driveway. I don't think it's a major road issue across the Carolinas. But as you can see, that's 2 a.m. But Tim, Christian, back me up here. The best thing that's going on here is the short amount of time that this is going to be here. So by the time the sun rises up, this is pretty much mostly clear of the area.
Yeah, Chris, and I've been telling people, if you stay up late or if you get up really, really early, you're going to see it fall. Otherwise, this is really an event that happens while we're sleeping. You may wake up to a dusting or even a coating on the ground, maybe more if you go to the north and east of the Triad. But this is really not, a lot of people have kind of complained, I really want to see it, really want to be able to see it when it falls, but you're going to have to stay up really late like we do in TV, or you're going to have to get up really, really early tomorrow morning. It is so quick. It's going to be here and then it's going to be gone. And Thursday is not a snowy day of weather. In fact, it's a bright, sunshiny day. It is cold and it is windy. But if you want to see this event happening, you're going to have to stay up for the next few hours into the wee hours of the morning if you want to see it.
And for a lot of you, it's going to be, if you blink, you're going to mix it, because it's going to be that brief little burst of snow. And that's a term that we bring up all the time, a burst of snow. And that really just means that the column of air hit the right temperature pattern. Most likely, it's going to be above freezing for most of us here close to the Charlotte area. For you guys, maybe a little bit closer to freezing. But still, we don't have the right environment. This is going to be sticking around for a long time. You need the snow to fall for several hours to overcome that warmer ground. And I want to bring up the key thing for our area. Check out these temperatures that we saw for highs today. First off, it was nice to see the sun. I forgot what that looked like. Felt like I hadn't seen it in 3 days. 61 in Charlotte, 65 in Gastonia. The mountains are what we always talk about for snow. They hit 56 degrees. So yes, we're talking about 1 to 3 inches, 3 to 6 in the mountaintops that are of course going to overcome it. Great for skiers, but a lot of this is going to be melting on contact. And Christian, you brought up sunshine is going to melt a lot of this away. So when you wake up, you're just like, where's the snow?
You know, and people have been asking about travel conditions, and we've just kind of been erring on the side of caution and saying, you know, there's probably going to be some slushy or slick spots for that Thursday morning commute. So if you need to plan extra time, I probably would if you have to get out and go in the morning, or maybe work for the first part of the day from home. But this is not going to be, you know, a long drawn out event. And really by midday tomorrow, I think anything that's on the roads is really going to be melted away.
Yeah. And it's also going to be windy too. That's one thing that I'm kind of putting in the back burner whenever you have winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories. You have to mention the winds. So the winds gusting up to 30 miles per hour in the mountains. And one thing that I thought was really interesting, let's see if I can bring this graphic up. I don't think you guys are going to be really too affected by this, but the wind chills tomorrow are going to be balmy. And I'm being sarcastic, of course. Check this out. So this is going to be tomorrow morning, feeling like 5 degrees in Boone, 35. That's at noon. But 2 degrees at 8 a.m. So it's going to be a breezy day. So that's going to chill you down a little bit. But also the winds are our best friend because it's dry things out. We're not really talking about much of a refreeze as well.
Yeah, they do it differently up there, up in Boone. It's up in the mountains. But it's, you know, too, here in the Triad, you know, tomorrow it's going to be a cold day of weather. We will feel like around the upper 20s to low 30s all throughout the day, like from the morning into the afternoon. It'll be sunny, but it's not going to be all that warm for Thursday. So as far as our snow totals, if you're watching from here in the Triad, I've shared my screen here. You can kind of see what we're thinking. I've phrased it this way. If you live in the West, especially west of Greensboro, especially west of Winston-Salem, you're likely going to be disappointed. This is not a big snow event for any of us, but it's especially not a big snow event if you're west of Winston-Salem. We generally think here at FMY that we're going to see less than an inch of snow in those areas. That's our little white shade there. From Greensboro to High Point, Winston, even Asheboro or Lexington, you could pick up a slushy inch. Now, you could also maybe get toward 2 inches or so in parts of Guilford, parts of Alamance, and parts of Rockingham. We do have that darker shade, and the reason we included that darker shade to the northern tier, we think that there's more potential for it to last longer there, and because this changeover is happening between 12 and 2, right? And at that time, the moisture is already going to start to be moving away from the western Piedmont. But in the eastern Piedmont, it's going to continue to about 5 and 6. So you'll maybe get that heavier burst, and it could last a little bit longer even so. So I think your sweet spot is really northern tier counties. We're talking about Caswell, Person, maybe Rockingham. But even as you go over toward Raleigh, you know, north of there, they could get a real solid event. You know, it's harder to get snow in those areas typically. But eastern North Carolina, they're talking about this all the way over to the Outer Banks.
Yeah, I think that's what's really impressive about that. And that's why you have the three of us here, because whenever we're talking about snow, and again, it's the backside of that system, it makes a little bit bigger deal because, of course, we wouldn't be doing this if it was just snow in the mountains. I'll bring up my screen to show the forecast. I don't have the 2 to 4 just because pretty much I got lazy because it was outside of our viewing area, to be honest with you. But you can see we're in that trace to 1 inch for Salisbury, Statesville, Taylorsville. And again, that's a big what if. So that window of opportunity through the early morning hours, I think you could see a burst of snow. A lot of that's going to be melting away. But really, I think the best news that comes from here is for the skiers, because you're going to have some fresh powder on top of Beach, Sugar Mountain. And I think you could easily see upwards of about 3 to 6 inches there, and then 1 to 3 for the Boone area. And we were just showing the Boone camera. Right now, even though on the radar, it's looking like you're seeing snow, and I'll bring that up real quick. Again, for my enhanced snowfall, you can see the blues here, and that's showing a heavier snowfall. And there it is. Look through the lights. Snow is falling, but Brad coined this. I'm not going to steal from him. This is white rain. It's just hitting the surface. It's still too warm, the surface, and this isn't going to be lingering around long enough that it's really going to be that much of an issue. So we're not just saying here, no big deal. Of course, there's still going to be some slick spots, but this could be a lot worse, and it's all because of timing. If we had more time, the snow would have a better chance of accumulating a little bit more, but it's you two that have a better chance for snow compared to the rest of the area. So Charlotte, I'm sorry. I know that you wanted it. I know a lot of you are saying, man, I really want snow. The way that this pattern is set up, we talk about nor'easters. We have more chances. If colder air was in place, if we weren't in the 60s, if today was a 40-degree day, we would be talking about snow across a lot more of the area, but doesn't seem to be the case in this scenario.
Now, Chris, a lot of people have been asking us too today in our area, well, how is the snow going to stick because it's so warm? What about the ground? And that is a fair question, but we often emphasize, this is going to be some thick, heavy, wet snow. And we're not talking about, just some flurries flying around overnight. This is probably going to come down at a pretty good rate for a few hours, once it starts. And, yes, the roads are still going to be warm, but that's why we kind of been emphasizing that this accumulation is mostly going to be on grassy surfaces, elevated surfaces, because even if they're warm, if the snow falls at a fast enough rate, it can overcome that warm ground for a while. The road is obviously going to be a little bit warmer, so there'll be more trouble there. But that's why, again, we've kind of emphasized the fact this is mainly going to be on the grassy surfaces, the elevated surfaces, your mulch beds, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and Tim, do you already want to move ahead? Because you're really good about this. Follow him on Twitter about pretty much busting the hype. Let's bring up this graphic. Of course, it's always about the next system. We have a similar setup. It's a little bit further north. Looks like it's mainly going to be rain across the Carolinas, seeing snow transition. This is Saturday night to Sunday. Again, not a big deal for the Carolinas. We just want to bust that hype unless it's already getting out there.
Yeah, I have actually gotten more questions about the Sunday storm than I have about this one. And it's sometimes more fun for people to look down the road rather than what's in front of us. I'm still not really sure about the details for Sunday. If you're here in the Triad, I honestly haven't looked that closely at it because we're trying to nail down this one first. One at a time is good. We're not jugglers. But as far as Sunday goes, it is possible that we might have some mixed precipitation here. I would be worried with that look of maybe in like a freezing rain setup, especially for our typical cold air damming counties that we have up here, your Surreys, your Wilkes, all those kind of spots where the cold air could stick around a little longer. We'll get to Sunday when we get there, but as of now, let's focus on tonight.
Let's focus on tonight. So, do you know what? Sometimes I get way too far ahead of myself. So again, a quick recap if you're just joining us. I'm meteorologist Chris Mulchay. We have Christian Morgan, Tim Buckley here. And really just all in all, be careful driving out tomorrow morning. A lot of you are going to be sleeping through this event as it's pushing through. It's really hitting the sweet spot a couple hours from now. That's where we're going to see the changeover. We're seeing it in the mountains. We're seeing snow right there, as you can see in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. And then it is going to be areas, I'm going to call it Iredell County. Let's go to Rowan County, Cabarrus, even Stanley, because you're getting a little bit close to that Greensboro, Winston-Salem area. Over to Raleigh, I think it's going to be a little bit more of a bullseye, the northern part of the state. But we are transitioning now. But one thing I think the models didn't really pick up on is some of these rain rates have really picked up. We were looking at a light mist before, and it's turned in some really heavy rain. So that, of course, is going to cool things down pretty quickly. And then once it changes over just like that, the burst of snow, as Christian mentioned, that could overcome some of those wet surfaces, especially along the I-40 corridor and a little bit further north you go towards you guys in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, if you're living in the Triad and you're really wanting to see some snow, put on the coffee, wait a couple of hours. I think, you really could between 1 and 2 in the morning or so. That's when we really could start to see things picking up. Maybe not initially at midnight, but by 1, 2, and 3 o'clock, it really could come down at a good clip. And it wouldn't take too long for it to stick to your deck. I know we'll get the pictures of the yard furniture. And that's I want it. But that's when you could start to see it and the fun could happen. But it's not going to be enough to make a snowman. CJ made a comment here, the GFS is dangerous lately. Yeah, some of the models have been giving us a mean of 10 inches of snow. It's never going to happen here for us in this type of a storm. But there is potential that we get that burst that does add up for, 2 inches in some spots. And that's something we've actually not had 2 inches of snow here in Greensboro since December of 2018. So it's been a long time that we want to see what happens.
And it's been a while since we've actually had to do these, as you just mentioned, a couple of years that it's been pretty pitiful as far as snow goes. So don't really just give up on your snow potential yet. So if you don't see any this time, we do have the prime setup that more and more of these systems roll through. All you need is colder air in place because cold air damming. Busted a lot of forecasts. I know a lot of you are probably disappointed you didn't get the 70s the other day, but whenever you have that cooler air in place beforehand, that's what we're looking for. But for most of the area, we didn't really have that. But of course, some of it's going to overcome. So watching from the mountains, you're seeing snow. Next stop is going to be our northern tier along the I-40 corridor, heading over to Greensboro, seeing that burst of snow. So drive safe, everyone.
Yeah, I would second that too. I think some slushy spots on the roadways early tomorrow morning in the Triad, especially if you go north and east of Greensboro, that would be something to watch. But by the time 10 o'clock rolls around, everything should be okay. The sun will do its magic. You can kind of sort of see on my Twitter feed here, this is our computer model doing that hour by hour. And notice it really has that quick changeover after 12. And then by 4 and 5, it's all done. And that sun is out if you wake up like me after 7 o'clock, which you probably wake up earlier, but the sun is out when you're waking up.
Yeah. Hey, another thing I want to mention, guys, if we can pull up our snow map that we've been using here at WFMY for the Triad areas, we really, we're really trying to drive home the point that these are not guaranteed exact snowfall amounts that you're going to see in your neighborhood. And oftentimes, we mentioned that there could be locally higher amounts or maybe a little bit less in places. And a lot of those locally higher amounts that we talk about are all dependent on some of those heavier bands and heavier bursts, like we just talked about a few minutes ago, setting up. And people, a lot of people like to ask, well, where's that going to be? And those are, next to impossible to forecast and predict where those are going to set up. You never really know until it actually starts happening. And then you can kind of pick it out on radar where those heavier bursts are. But that's what we mean when we say there could be locally higher amounts. So, you may pick up an inch in your neighborhood and somebody 2 or 3 blocks over may get a little bit more. They may get a little bit less, just depending on where those set up. So, these maps are generally a guide as to a general rule of what we think is most likely going to fall.
Yeah, and sometimes we go conservative as far as snow amounts go. So that 1 to 2 inch mark, a lot of us probably going to miss the mark because 1 to 2 inches, it could fall, but a lot of that could be melting on contact initially. It takes a little bit for it to catch up. So just keep that in mind. So, and if we look closely here, I'm trying to really see if we're picking up any accumulation up in the mountains. I believe we're looking at Blowing Rock right now. As of right now, just some really wet, slushy snow. But this is only the beginning. But luckily, it's only going to be about 6 to 8 hours of this event before it's going to be getting out of here. But not a nice evening. I think all of us can agree.
No, one thing we do really well in North Carolina, though, is cold rainfall.
Yeah.
We are great at it. I wish we could give that title to someone else, but we have that right now.
Well, Gold Star. Well, it's so nice seeing you guys. We follow each other on Twitter. This is the first time. I'm in for Brad tonight. So, of course, you see Brad for the next snow event. So, main message, drive safe overnight tonight. And tomorrow is going to be the coldest day of the week. So I'm looking forward to February 5th, where we're going to be maybe back to the 60s here. Again, maybe I'm jumping too far ahead, but I'm an optimist by nature, but that might be default, but also a plus.
I'm looking forward to April 1st. I'll see you guys then.
Yeah, that's even better. That's even better. All right, well, take care, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. Drive safe, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday evening. See ya.